That night, I stood before the mirror. The woman staring back at me was a stranger, her sharp eyes whispering truths as deep as the ocean. I had planned a perfect anniversary with Daniel, my love and unbroken tide. But in his office, I saw Elise, her body tangled with his. Their betrayal was a blade slicing through the 15 years we shared. And now, I will plan how to take merciless revenge on the traitors. Before we dive into this gripping story, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of our upcoming stories. And leave a comment to let us know where you're watching from. And now, dear audience, let's dive into this intense story together. I was Nora, 40, a woman who had woven 15 years of love into a life with Daniel, 45, my husband, the CEO, whose ambition I'd cradled like a fragile flame, our coastal Connecticut estate, our children Mia, 21, and Liam, 19, who were now in college, our vow renewal under starlit skies. The salty air clung to my skin as I stood in the elevator of Pinnacle Wealth Advisors. The key card Daniel had given me years ago weighed as much as a stone in my hand. The elevator hummed, and I had planned a surprise to rival the night he proposed at the Crestwood. I didn't knock because surprises don't announce themselves. The door to Daniel's corner office slid open silent as our marriage's polished facade and the world I knew split into a before and after. The silence of the executive floor intensifies my heartbeat, and the click of my heels on the marble floor intensifies my anticipation. He stood with his back to me, broad shoulders, bare beneath an unbuttoned shirt, his suit jacket a careless heap on the floor. Beneath him, sprawled across the mahogany desk we'd chosen together when he made partner, was Elise, 30. His executive assistant, her crimson dress bunched at her hips, stilettos gouging his back as she urged him deeper. Their sounds, raw primal, were a blade carving betrayal into my soul. The gift bag slipped from my fingers, the scotch shattering its amber seeping like blood across the hardwood. Time froze their bodies, stilled caught in sin's amber. Nora Daniel's voice cracked a fault line, splitting our shared history. He stumbled back, fumbling with his trousers, his face flushed from passion, draining to ash. Elise adjusted her dress, but her amber eyes held no remorse, only pity, a condescension that ignited a glacial calm within me. Happy anniversary, I whispered, my voice a wraith detached from the tempest roaring inside. I turned his desperate calls, Nora, please. The janitor's eyes widened at my face, and as I descended the elevator doors, sealed Daniel's voice into quiet. Chasing me, each plea more frantic, I walked deliberate, unhurried, as if time were mine alone. 15 years, 2 children raised through sleepless nights, a home sculpted with care. Every dinner party, a performance of loyalty, now a house of cards. The cracks I'd ignored, late nights, missed dinners, urgent calls that stole him away, gaped like wounds. How long, the trembling in my car started not gentle shivers, but violent quakes, and my hands were useless against the ignition. Was she the first? The questions were so intense that they threatened to overwhelm me. I contacted my sister Claire, and with such a distorted voice, she said, "Is that you, Nora?" I declined her offer to drive 3 hours because I felt a primal need to face Daniel alone. At 2:17 a.m., my phone glowed, "Staying at the Harbor Inn. We need to talk tomorrow. I'm so sorry." Sorry, a word too small for the wreckage. I sat in our kitchen, the marble island Daniel called our future's cornerstone, cold under my palms. Family photos, Mia's graduation, Liam's baseball victories, our vow renewal lined the walls, their smiles now suspicious. Dawn painted the room gold, and with it came a clarity sharper than pain. This wasn't just an affair. It was 15 years of me dimming my light, leaving my legal career for his dreams, raising our kids alone, hosting his galas, only to be dumped for someone younger and simpler, and making sure Daniel's every mention of my name carried the weight of his ruin. The next morning, Daniel returned a shadow of the man I had loved. His eyes were bloodshot, his jaw was darkened by stubble, and his tailored suit was wrinkled. He found me at the dining table with a cold coffee cup as my anchor and my silence as a mirror to his unraveling. "Nora, please," he said in a broken voice. "Let me explain." How long, I asked the question, a guillotine? He hesitated, confirming my fear. 8 months, he admitted, each word a wound, but it meant nothing. Through Liam's surgery, my mother's funeral, and the Christmas diamond earrings he gave me, every memory of the past year was tainted. A mistake, he begged, falling to his knees and clutching my hands. Unforgivable, but it's over. I love you, Nora. You and the kids are my life. Tears streaked his face, which is uncommon in 15 years. I nodded, asked the expected questions, assumed the role of the wounded wife, and then, with a calm and gentle demeanor, I revealed my true intentions. Daniel's face went white as he said, "Why would Richard Sterling need to know our personal issues? He was his mentor partner, and the man who had started his career. I'm just wondering if he knows you've been sleeping with his daughter for 8 months, I said with an icy smile. The deafening silence drowned out the sound of the clock ticking and the refrigerator humming. What? Daniel muttered, barely audible. Elise Reed, born Elise Sterling. I said, each word a scalpel. She changed her name to avoid nepotism at Pinnacle. Surely you vetted her before hiring her, before bending her over your desk. His horror confirmed he hadn't known Elise was Richard's daughter from his first marriage, met briefly at a gala 3 years ago, and her amber eyes and sharp jawline were a mirror of her father's. Richard, the majority stakeholder, a man of old-school honor, would view this as an unforgivable betrayal. I noticed her at the gala, I said. You were too busy with clients, but I saw the resemblance. My voice grew steely. I gave everything my career when Mia was born, my family. To follow your moves, lonely holidays, while you climbed, and this is your loyalty. He pleaded, we can fix this. But I persisted. I was going to tell you I'd been accepted to law school, my dream reclaimed. That was my surprise. Instead, I found you with Richard's daughter, moaning your name. That night, Daniel slept in the guest room, his desperate calls to Elise filling the house with panic. I lay awake, not with grief, but with purpose. 6 months ago, an email on his iPad last night was worth the risk, had raised suspicions, so I hired Lena Chen, a former FBI investigator who was paid from my grandmother's hidden inheritance. Not only had she uncovered the affair, but she had also exposed Daniel's financial deceit, as he had been siphoning funds to a Cayman account, a hidden savings account. As the waves crashed outside, I knew this wasn't the end. It was the spark of my vengeance, a storm Daniel would never outrun. The tide sang its mournful song beyond our Connecticut estate, a rhythm older than my pain, its waves whispering secrets to the moon. I sat in the study, the glow of Daniel's iPad, casting shadows on my face, my fingers tracing the email that had sparked this fire 6 months ago. Last night was worth the risk, a thread I'd followed to this moment. My heart, once a drum of love, now beat with purpose, a war chant against the man who'd vowed forever. Daniel slept in the guest room, his snores a distant thunder, unaware that I was no longer the woman who dimmed her stars for his sky. The dawn of our 15th anniversary had shattered my trust, Elise's pitying eyes, and Daniel's betrayal on that mahogany desk, a wound that bled resolve. 8 months he'd confessed, 8 months of lies woven through Liam's surgery, my mother's funeral, our Christmas morning. But the affair was only the surface. Beneath it, Lena Chen, my investigator, had uncovered a deeper betrayal, Daniel's theft, siphoning Pinnacle's funds, to a Cayman account, a nest egg for a life without me. I was Nora 40, and like the tides, I would not be tamed. My vengeance was a tapestry, and tonight I wove its next threads. Nora, you're up late. What's happened? I dialed Lena, whose voice was as harsh as obsidian, while the house was still, and Mia and Liam were away at college, their absence a hollow ache. I told her about the anniversary. The desk, Elise's crimson dress, Richard's daughter, and Lena's silence was like a hawk circling. Then I said, this changes the timeline. We move faster now. Meet me tomorrow at the cafe in Mystic at noon. And I agreed while keeping my breath steady. I then called my sister Claire, who lived 3 hours away. Her voice was a river calm yet fierce, saying, Nora, come to me, let me hold you. But I refused. I need to face this here, Claire. It's not just the affair. He's stealing, planning a life with her. Claire's gasp resembled the sound of wind rustling through pines. Then you fight Nora, like our grandmother fought for her land. You're stronger than you know, she said, kindling the fire inside me. I hung up my eyes on the family photos, Mia's graduation, Liam's baseball trophy, our vow renewal, each a lie Daniel had painted over. I made coffee with unwavering hands as the morning dawned bleak and heavy, the sky reflecting my heart. Daniel came out, his suit rumpled his face, etched with remorse, and he said, "Nora, we need to talk." "You talked yesterday, Daniel, 8 months, you said. What more is there?" he replied. He winced and said, "I ended it, I swear. I called Elise last night. It's over." His deception was a false dawn, and his eyes darted, betraying the calls I'd heard through the wall. I played my part, the wounded wife, and said, "I need time, Daniel. This isn't fixed with words." He nodded, relief flickering, oblivious to the storm I was brewing. As he left for Pinnacle, I dressed in shadow black sweater jeans and a scarf to cover my face, and drove to Mystica Cafe, that was a haven of salt air and secrets. Lena waited, her dark eyes scanning me like a tracker, and she said, "You're not broken, sah," without question. I nodded and said, "I'm angry, Lena, and I'm ready." She slid a folder across the table, its weight a promise. "This is what we have. We have photos, videos, hotel receipts, and 8 months' worth of evidence from Daniel and Elise. But the money, Nora, that's the real blade." I opened it, my breath catching. Bank records, transfer authorizations, Daniel's signature scrawled on each. Julian Reeves, Lena's forensic accountant, had traced the funds, small sums hidden in Pinnacle's accounts, flowing to the Caymans. "He's moved $1.2 million, Lena said. Enough for a new life. He didn't expect you to look." I traced the numbers, my old legal training stirring. "He thought I was just the housewife paying bills, hosting galas. But I know money, Lena. I see the patterns." She smiled, a wolf's grin. "Good. Because Richard Sterling's meeting you tomorrow 9 a.m. in his private office. He doesn't know about Elise yet, but he'll listen about the money. You plant the seed, and I'll deliver the proof." My pulse quickened. Richard, 55. Daniel's mentor, the man whose honor was a lodestone, would be my arrow. I nodded. "And Elise?" "We save her for the board meeting, maximum impact," Lena said, her eyes darkening. That night, Daniel returned, his charm a mask. I spoke to my lawyer, Nora. "We can rebuild therapy, anything you want." I smiled, a crescent moon. "We'll see, Daniel. I'm still processing." He didn't notice my calm, too, consumed by his own script. In the study, I reviewed Lena's folder. Each photo, a stab. Elise laughing in Daniel's arms. Hotel keys. Timestamps of late-night office visits. The financial records were a map. Daniel's greed, a river cutting through our life. I called Julian, his voice steady as granite. "Nora, the evidence is ironclad, SEC violations, embezzlement. We've got him. But Richard needs to see it first. Keep him focused on the money, not the affair." I agreed. My mind was weaving the plan. Richard's reaction would be the spark, Elise's identity, the blaze. I slept little, the tide song my companion. My dreams of a younger Nora, 24, paused her law degree for Daniel's dreams, believing his promise. "We'll share this, Nora. Your time will come." That promise was ash, but I was fire. When I arrived at Pinnacle the following morning, I took the private elevator to Richard's office, which was a quiet climb. He greeted me with a firm but friendly handshake and silver hair that caught the sunshine. "Nora, your arrival is unexpected. Is everything all right?" I sat with my folder unopened and said, "No, Richard, it's not. I've found something about Daniel, something you need to know." His brow furrowed, and I continued laying out the financial evidence, spreadsheets, and bank records in a steady voice. "Daniel's been moving funds, small amounts hidden to an offshore account. Over $1.2 million. It's embezzlement, Richard," he said, leaning back with a deadpan expression on his face. He nodded respectfully as I looked into his eyes and said, "I'll review this, Nora, discreetly. If it's true, there'll be consequences." I paused at the door and spoke softly. "Richard, does Elise still work in creative at Horizon Media? You trusted Daniel. You built Pinnacle with him. And I thought you deserved to handle this first to protect your company and your reputation." His expression softened. "Yes, she is doing well. Why? Just thinking of career paths. Mia's choosing hers, I said with a smile that had a shadow's edge. I whispered Elise's name to capture his attention. Daniel felt nothing when he got home and concentrated on Pinnacle's next board meeting. It's a tough week, Nora, he said, adjusting his tie. But I'm fighting for us, I said while pressing his suit, my hands steady. I know, Daniel, you always fight. My smile concealed the blade. That night, Lena called, and I said, the package is ready, delivered to Richard's home. Friday photos, videos, texts, and a note. Ask Elise about Daniel Sot. Untraceable. He'll have the weekend to boil. The plan was taking shape, and I met Julian again in a quiet room of a library. Daniel thought I was at yoga. The SEC's ready, Julian said. Once Richard acts, they'll move. Criminal charges, Nora. He's done. I nodded, my heart a drum. Safe, he affirmed, transferred to your name. He can't touch them. I considered the faces of Mia and Liam in those pictures, oblivious to their father's collapse. I would shield them from the truth, but not reality. They were adults, and owed honesty, if not every scar. The weekend was a dance, Daniel's desperation wrapped in optimism. The board will see my value, he said, pacing. They can't replace me. And I played the part of the supportive wife, ironing his shirt and cooking his favorite dish salmon with dill, while my mind was a loom weaving his end. You're strong, Daniel, I said, my voice a lullaby. You'll get through. He didn't see the irony, didn't feel the tide turning, and I was fighting not with tears, but with strategy. Richard's rage, Lena's evidence, and Julian's numbers. They were my arrows. Daniel's board meeting was tomorrow. His execution chamber, Elise's betrayal, and Richard's daughter would be the final blow. And I was no longer the woman who had paused her dreams. I was Nora, and like the tide, I would carve my own path, a storm rising to reclaim my stars. The ocean roared beyond our Connecticut estate, its voice a war drum echoing the pulse in my veins. The morning of Daniel's board meeting at Pinnacle Wealth Advisors dawned with a purple-bruised sky and clouds heavy with the promise of rain. Daniel paced his tie, a noose he hadn't yet felt, and he said, "They'll see my worth." Nora, with his voice a fragile thread. I built this company, they can't cast me out. I smoothed a crease, my smile a crescent moon, and said, "You're a fighter, Daniel." Always have been. My words were honey concealing the blade I'd been honing for months, and the tapestry of my vengeance woven with Lena Chen's evidence, Julian Reeves' numbers, and Richard Sterling's honor was ready. Today the storm would break, and Daniel 45, my husband of 15 years, would drown in the truth. I was Nora, 40, no longer the woman who dimmed her stars, but a tide rising my heart, chanting for justice. Daniel's eyes sought mine in the mirror strain, carving lines around them, gray flecking his temples like ash. "Your support means everything," Nora, he said, his voice cracking. "I don't deserve it, but I'll earn it back, I swear." For a moment, I saw the man I'd loved at 24, ambitious, brilliant, promising a shared future. That man was gone, replaced by a stranger who'd betrayed me with Elise, 30, Richard's daughter for 8 months, who'd stolen $1.2 million from Pinnacle for a life without me. I stepped close, adjusting his collar, my fingers brushing his skin. "Good luck today," I said, my voice a lullaby. The scent of his cologne, my Christmas gift, bitter now. He left unaware that on Friday, Lena had delivered a package to Richard's home: photos, videos, texts of his affair with Elise, and a note whispering, "Ask Elise about Daniel." Untraceable, it had given Richard the weekend to burn, to confirm, to sharpen his honor into a spear. The board meeting served as his execution chamber, and I, as the weaver, had prepared the trap. I waited the house silent, Mia and Liam's absence at college, await their photos, Mia's graduation, Liam's baseball triumphs, watching from the walls. I'd shielded them from the worst hinting weeks ago at marital strain, but today I'd call them truth owed to their adult hearts. The tide's song was my companion, as I reviewed Lena's folder, each image a wound, Elise in Daniel's arms, hotel receipts, Late-night office logs, Julian's financial records, bank transfers. Daniel's signature were my arrows. The SEC waited alerted by Julian ready to strike once Richard acted. At 8 a.m., the board meeting began. I sat on our deck, the wind carrying salt, and secrets my phone silent but heavy. Lena's words echoed maximum impact, Elise's identity. Richard's daughter would be the spark. At 2:13 p.m., Julian called his voice granite. "It's done, Nora!" They hit him with everything embezzlement. The affair Richard barely spoke, just said, "My daughter confirms it." Daniel's finished. Criminal charges are coming. With my heart pounding, I thanked him and promptly called the locksmith. Within an hour, the locksmith changed the locks on our estate, boxed Daniel's belongings, suits, watches, and golf clubs in the garage, and my lawyer was on standby. With a cheerful voice from UCLA, I called Mia first, then trembled. "Mom, what's wrong next?" Liam in his NYU dorm, a globe away, said in a tiny deep voice. Dad did what Mia's rage burned intensely, as I explained. "Your father made mistakes, both personal and professional. Our marriage is ended. He's abused corporate finances, and there's another lady." "How could he?" Liam probed further. "Is Dad going to jail?" I replied. "I don't know, Liam, but you're both safe. Your futures are secure." Their suffering was uncontrollable, but I told them the truth, avoiding the raw scars. They were adults, not children, and I trusted their strength. Hanging up, I stood with my grandmother's voice in my blood, the ocean's roar a chant, and the land fighting Nora, so must you. I was fighting not with tears, but with precision. Daniel's car pulled into the driveway at 4:42 p.m. The man who stepped out of the car appeared disheveled, with his tie-missing shirt unbuttoned and face pale. His confident stride had been replaced by a shuffle. I unlocked the door, my calmness mirroring his decline. As he collapsed onto the couch, he muttered, "They knew everything." The money Elise Richard looked at me like I was trash. "How, Nora? How were they aware? What happened, Daniel?" I sat across from him, my voice as gentle as dusk, as his wild eyes searched for answers. He rambled, his voice breaking. "They had documents, transfers my signature, and Elise. They called her in, and she said I coerced her, that she feared for her job, and she betrayed me without blinking." Richard just stared, then said, "My daughter confirms everything. They're pressing charges, Nora. I'm done." His hands trembled, his world collapsing, and I tilted my head, thinking, that must hurt to be abandoned like that. He looked up, my quiet raising suspicions, and said, Nora, in a low voice, "Daniel, did you think I'd miss it?" My smile was like a sword. "The money, $1.2 million your escape fund, not only Elise." His expression was depleted. How? You thought I was just the wife cooking, smiling, but I see Daniel I always have," I said, leaning forward. "I've known for months. I waited, watched, and gathered." With his face contorted in anger, he lunged and grabbed my wrists, saying, "You set me up, you did this." "Be careful, Daniel," I urged, my voice icy. "The security cameras rolling, my lawyer's ready for an assault charge. How will that pair with embezzlement?" His grasp was bruising, but I didn't flinch. He let me go, staggered back, his breath ragged. "This is my house," he growled. "You can't." I got up. "It's mine now. As of 10:17 a.m., you signed it over last week." "Refinancing, you thought too distracted to read." His eyes widened, horror dawning. "That's fraud," he gasped, and I laughed with a sound like breaking waves. "No, Daniel, it's legal. Your lawyer quit today. He's mine now. Your things are in the garage. Take what you can in 30 minutes. The rest goes to charity." He cycled through anger threats and entreaties, saying, "You built this, Nora, our kids, our life." I opened the door. "You built lies, Daniel, now leave." He took his suit's watches and the Porsche mine, but useless to me. His taillights faded, and I stood the song of the ocean, my triumph freedom, a fire in my chest. I was walking along the shore that night, the sand cool under my feet, the stars sharp as truths, when Richard called, his voice heavy. "Nora, I reviewed your evidence. It's airtight. Daniel's out. The SEC's moving. I owe you for bringing this to me." I heard his pain, Elise's betrayal, a wound, I said, meaning it. He paused. You're a strong woman? Nora stronger than I knew. I smiled into the dark. I'm learning, Richard. I hung up thinking about Mia and Liam, their futures secure, my law school acceptance letter hidden in my desk. The tide, my grandmother's voice rising. You are the storm, Nora. Claim your stars. Daniel's fall was complete, but my ascent was just getting started. The board meeting was my arrow, Elise's truth was the flame, and tomorrow I would face the wreckage and rebuild on my terms, and I would carve my path unyielding, glorious, and free like the ocean. The ocean's breath was a steady chant, its waves carving secrets into the shore of our Connecticut estate. I stood in the kitchen, the marble island cold under my palms, the dawn light painting shadows across the family photos, Mia's graduation, Liam's baseball triumphs, our vow renewal, now relics of a life Daniel had shattered. The board meeting yesterday had been his unmaking. His affair with Elise Richards' daughter and his theft of $1.2 million from Pinnacle Wealth Advisors were laid bare. The locks were changed, his belongings boxed, and the Porsche he'd taken a hollow prize. I was Nora, 40. No longer the woman who dimmed her stars for Daniel's sky, but a tide rising my heart, a drum for justice. The fallout was here, a storm's aftermath, and I would walk through it, my grandmother's voice in my blood. The land heals itself, Nora. So must you. Today I'd face Daniel's ruin, Elise's defiance, my children's pain, and the path to my own rebirth. The tapestry of my vengeance was woven, but its threads now bound me to a new dawn. My investigator, Lena Chen, called at 7:00 a.m., with a sharp voice like obsidian saying, "The SEC's moving, Nora. They've frozen Daniel's accounts. Criminal charges filed, embezzlement fraud. He's looking at years, not months." And I let out a breath as the weight of his betrayal lifted. Daniel's absence was a silence louder than the tide. His desperate calls filled my phone with pleas, threats, and apologies, all of which were ignored. Lena's tone softened as I asked, "He's wounded. Elise's role cuts deep. She has left Horizon Media, and the rumor says she is in Chicago." But Richard's grateful, Nora. "He knows you spared Pinnacle a public scandal." I nodded, but she couldn't see me. "Keep me posted, Lena, and thank Julian." The forensic accountant's numbers had been my spear, Richard's honor, the flame, and I hung up my acceptance letter from law school, a hidden fire in my desk. My dream paused at 24, for Daniel's promises was stirring, but first I'd face the wreckage. He broke everything, Claire, I admitted, 15 years, Mia, Liam, my career. And I broke him back. Am I cruel? My sister Claire arrived by noon, her 3-hour drive a vow of love. Her embrace was a river warm and fierce. "Nora, you're standing tall," she said, her eyes searching mine. "But your heart, sister, it's heavy. Let it breathe." We sat on the deck, the song of the ocean a cradle. Claire smiled and said, "You're weaving a new story, Nora, one where you shine." The tide roared, and I felt it, a spark of freedom amidst the ash. "You're not cruel. You're a storm, Nora, clearing the rot, so new growth comes, like our grandmother fighting for her land." Her words were embers kindling my resolve. I told her about the divorce, my lawyer's papers ready, and the evidence, Lena's photos and Julian's records, that would ensure I'd keep the house, the assets, and my independence. The calls from Mia and Liam followed, their voices brittle over the distance. Mia was on fire at UCLA, saying, "Mom, I hate him. How could he do this to us?" At NYU, Liam was more reserved and asked a straightforward question. "Mom, is Dad actually going to jail? What becomes of us?" I trusted him. "Mom," Liam continued, "I keep seeing his face, smiling at my games." "Was it all fake?" I said softly. "Your father chose this, Mia and Liam. His affair, his theft. They're his burdens, not yours. You're safe. Your college funds. This house, they're ours. I'll protect you." Mia started crying. I promised them the truth, avoiding the most severe injuries, Elise on the desk. Daniel's hold on my wrists, but giving them enough to stand. They were my stars, and I would protect their light. The ocean murmured, "You are their anchor, Nora. Hold fast." My heart ached. "Not all of it. He loves you, but love can falter. You're strong, both of you. We'll walk this together." I drove to Mystic the Cafe, where I had met Lena that afternoon, because I had heard a rumor that Elise was packing her office at Horizon Media, and I needed to see her not for revenge, but for the truth. The cafe was quiet with coffee and salt air mingling, and Elise sat by herself, her amber eyes catching the light and her crimson scarf echoing that dress. When she saw me, her face hardened, and she said, "Nora," with a sarcastic voice. With my composure as a barrier, I sat and said, "No, Elise, to understand why him Richard's daughter," why she chuckled bitterly. "You believe I orchestrated it." Daniel followed me and said that I was his way out of his oppressive life. Her remarks, which included, "Your lovely house, your perfect kids," were hurtful, but I remained firm. "And you believed him, for a man who would also reject you. You betrayed your father's trust." Her eyes darted. "I didn't know he was stealing." I thought she stopped embarrassment setting in. "I was wrong, Nora. But you destroyed him. You and your evidence." I leaned forward. "I didn't make Daniel betray us, Elise. He chose you. He chose greed." I just held up the mirror. She stood, her defiance crumbling. "I'm leaving Chicago, a fresh start. Tell Richard." "I'm sorry." She departed, the tide's chant rising. Truth cuts, Nora, but it frees. When my attorney Sarah arrived home with her briefcase full of paperwork, she said, "The divorce is simple. Your evidence, Lena's pictures, Julian's finances is a stronghold. Daniel's lawyer is fumbling, but he has nothing. The house assets and alimony are yours, Nora." I signed, keeping my hand steady. "And the restraining order," Sarah nodded. "The restraining order has been filed. His grab on your wrists and the camera footage are enough evidence. He won't come near you," I said, letting go of the legal chains. Daniel's plea deal came next, and Lena had heard about it 6 months in a federal facility, probation and restitution to Pinnacle. His empire was dust, and I was the wind that scattered it. That night, I walked the shore, the sand cool, the stars sharp, and Richard called in a heavy voice. "Nora, the board's settled. Daniel's gone, and I'm stepping back too. Elise, she's left, hasn't she?" He paused and said, "You should join the board, Nora. Your strength, we need it." I smiled and said, "I have other paths, Richard, but thank you." The ocean sang, "Your path is yours, Nora. Walk it." His pain was a father's. "You didn't fail, Richard," I replied. "She made her choice just like Daniel did, but you are still standing strong." That Saturday, Mia and Liam showed up with stubborn but pale faces. Mia gave me a hug, her fury waning, and said, "I'm proud of you, Mom. You battled." Liam, who is now taller than Daniel, choked back tears and said, "I saw Dad's mugshot online. It's true, isn't it? You're going to be a lawyer, Mom?" I nodded and said, "It's real, Liam, but you're not him. You're you." We sat on the balcony with the sea as our heartbeat. I told them about law school, my dream come true, and Mia's eyes brightened. "That's badass." Liam smiled. "Dad never saw you coming." Their laughter was a spark mending the cracks. I thought of Daniel, who was by now in a cell, his gray hair and broken stride. He had underestimated me and thought I would fade, but I was fire-woven from my grandmother's strength. The land endures, Nora, and so do you. The divorce papers were filed. Elise was gone. Richard was hurt, but thankful my children were standing with me, and the ocean roared a promise of tomorrow. I was Nora, and like the tide, I was carving my freedom, unyielding, fierce, and alive. The sea sung its timeless melody, its waves illuminating the shore of my Connecticut estate. 2 years had gone by since Daniel's downfall, since the board meeting at Pinnacle Wealth Advisors destroyed his empire, revealing his affair with Elise, Richard's daughter, and his theft of $1.2 million. I was Nora, now 42, no longer the woman who had dimmed her stars for Daniel's sky. But a tide had risen. My heart was a drum for justice. The divorce was final. The house was mine. Mia and Liam's futures were secure. My career in family law blossomed a path, carved from pain into purpose. The tapestry of my vengeance was complete. Its threads now a cloak of strength. The land renews, Nora. So have you. Today I walked my path, thinking about justice, confronting shadows, and embracing the stars I'd claimed. The sky was a canvas of gold and blue. The morning was gentle, and I drove to New Haven, where my office at a prestigious family law firm was a haven of polished wood and sunlight. My clients, women like me, betrayed diminished, found in me a guide, my own scars, a map to their freedom. I had graduated law school with the highest honors, the oldest in my cohort at 41, but the fiercest. My professors called me relentless, and my peers called me fire. Mia, now 23, texted that morning, "Mom, you're a legend. Love you." Liam, 21, sent a photo from NYU, his basketball jersey shining with the caption, "Proud of you, Mom, always." Their pride was a tide lifting me. They had seen their father's mugshot and endured his 6-month sentence probation and restitution to Pinnacle. They had started rebuilding with him, cautious and distant, and I let them choose my love, a steady shore, the ocean's chant echoing, "They are their own Nora, as you are yours." Daniel's shadow lingered, a ghost I'd encountered at Mia's graduation last month. He stood apart, his gray hair stark against his lined face, his once confident stride broken. We spoke for her sake, civil and distant, and he said, "Congratulations, Nora," in a voice that was a mixture of awe and bitterness. "Law school, a new career. You were always stronger than I knew," I said, smiling politely. "Yes, Daniel, I was." His eyes were filled with regret, but I felt no sympathy as he had underestimated me and thought I would cry. Instead, I used Lena Chen's evidence, Julian Reeves's numbers, Richard's honor, and my own steel to unmake him. He now lived in a modest apartment, a consultant for a small firm, his brilliance dimmed by his crimes. I wished him no harm, but also no warmth. He served as a lesson rather than a burden. That afternoon, Richard Sterling called in a friendly but booming voice saying, "Thanks to you, Nora, I'm retiring from Pinnacle's stable. I'd like to see you for coffee in Mystic." "You didn't fail her, Richard," I said. "She chose as Daniel did. You're still here building." He nodded, a faint smile on his face. "You're a force, Nora." "Ever thought of Pinnacle's board? You saved us," he said, exposing Daniel, sparing a scandal. "I owe you." His eyes contained pain, Elise's absence a wound. She'd settled in Chicago, a new job, a new name, and Richard never mentioned her, but I could see the ache. We parted ways, comrades joined by truth. The ocean's music, a bridge honor, endures, Nora, as does yours. I chuckled softly and waved, my paths elsewhere, Richard helping women reclaim their lives. But thank you. Claire came to visit that evening, her laughter a river through the house, and we cooked salmon. The kitchen was alive with memories. "You're glowing, Nora," she said, her eyes bright. "This life is yours, not his." I nodded, pouring wine. I was invisible, Claire dimming myself for him, never again. She raised her glass. "To our grandmother, to you, to rising." We drank, the tide's rhythm was our heartbeat. I shared with her the details of my work, including instances where I successfully secured homes, futures, and dignity for women who had fallen victim to deceit. My experience, Daniel's affair, his hold on my wrists, and his embezzlement was a lens sharpening my advocacy. Claire's pride was a fire. "You're her legacy, Nora, fighting for what's right." The stars above were sharp. My grandmother's voice was clear. And you, Nora, embody both the storm and the calm. I walked the shore at dusk. The sand cool, the waves, a chant of renewal. 2 years ago, I had stood here with Daniel's taillights, fading my heart, raw but fierce. And I had vowed to the woman in the mirror, never again invisible, never less than you deserve. I had renewed that promise every morning. Law school had been my forge with late nights case law and the weight of starting over. But I had thrived, my classmates younger, but my resolve deeper. My firm's partners and clients recognized my strength, and I embraced my identity as Nora, knowing that my worth belonged to me. I told Claire that love wasn't closed to me, but it would wait. I would never again shrink for a man's ego, nor would I ever silence my truth. Daniel's words at Mia's graduation had stuck with me. "You were always stronger." I saw it now not as a concession, but as my truth. I had faced Elise, her defiance crumbling. I had stood with Richard, honoring his loss. I regretted nothing, not the evidence, the board meeting, or the divorce, but only Daniel's choices and the cracks he'd carved in our family. Justice wasn't retaliation, but reclamation. I'd regained my power, my stars, and my name. The tide sang a final vow, "You are the rising Nora. Claim your dawn." I returned home. My office glowed a case file, open a woman's future in my hands. I was Nora, and like the ocean, I was everything glorious whole.